And we're back with more Public Affairs on Peach. You know, the political culture in Washington has changed quite a bit in the past 12 months. So, of course, we're talking about that with Democratic strategist Fred Hicks and Republican strategist Julianne Thompson. A lot of critics complain the president speaks out when Muslims are involved in terror attacks, and yet he's silent when, for example, with the Las Vegas massacre, the gunman was white. He's also been criticized for not labeling the Charlottesville violence domestic terrorism. Julianne, what would you say to people who claim that President Trump is racist?
Well, I certainly don't believe that President Trump is racist. People may see him with a lot of faults, and there's certainly things that I would change, but I in no way see him as a racist. I did disagree with the way Charlottesville was handled. I do think that that he could have done a better job at identifying what was actually going on there versus the stance that he took. So I disagreed with him on that. With regard to him labeling different types of terrorists depending on their racial background, I don't see that, I don't believe that, and I think it's a stretch.
Do you think people vote based on that, or that's going to divide us or really turn out the base for each party?
Yeah, I mean, President Trump is excellent at base politics, so I think that you'll certainly see, his base continue to turn out, and it's going to be up to Democrats to provide an emotionally strong counterargument, counterpoint to what he's putting out there, if they want to see the same kind of turnout.
Do you think it's based on race?
The president's comments? Mm-hmm. The facts are what they are, and as you mentioned, he chooses his terminology he associates certain terminology with certain groups. So whether you want to call it race or religion, ethnicity, he certainly seems to have a proclivity towards labeling certain groups certain ways.
Some people may say it's just being nationalistic.
Well, xenophobia has never really worked out well any time in our history. So even if you're just going to call it nationalistic, I would call it xenophobic, and that's problematic.
Okay. Big campaign promise for President Trump was regarding building the wall. Where do you think that's going to end up?
Well, of course, he has tossed the immigration issue back to Congress, which is where I think it belongs. I have never been a fan of executive orders from any president, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with the wall. There's a lot of problems to solve with regard to the immigration issue, and I don't think that that particular issue at this point in time is at the forefront of what he's thinking about. I think he's concentrating on tax reform right now.
Fred, Julia mentioned that he threw it back in Congress's court. Where do you think Congress is going to stand on the immigration issue?
Well, that's a great question. I think Congress has a lot of other issues that are more important and it's on the immediate horizon, such as funding CHIP. And so I think that before you can even morally, before you can even consider doing something like a wall, which by the way is something I'm against, you have a lot of other things that you need to do. So, but with this Congress, they believe in red meat. So I fully expect to see that they will try to find a way to fund it once they get past tax reform.
Okay, so Congress has been working on a lot of legislation, but nothing has passed. How much of the blame belongs to Congress and how much on Trump?
There's a lot of blame to go around with that, right? So I think when you are putting forth a bill like with this tax reform bill that has problems such that Senator Rubio just mentioned earlier this week that he has a problem with it because you don't have any allowances or tax breaks for low and middle income families, right? So when you have 2 or 3 defections from within your party around issues that should have been resolved in caucus, that's a problem. When you have a president who threatens members of Congress like he did with Murkowski via Twitter again, that's a problem, and that's not really a good way to win friends. He should probably spend some time reading Dale Carnegie's book.
Julianne, is there too much dissension within the Republican Party to actually see things getting done?
There's a lot of division right now. There's no doubt about that. Going back to what you asked previously, though, the president, whether you like the promises he made and whether you like the way that he is governing, he has kept his promises to his base. I don't fault him for legislation not moving forward. I actually don't fault the House of Representatives either. I think it falls squarely on the Senate. I think you can look at senators like John McCain and you can look at Mitch McConnell because I think he is more concerned with appointments and confirmations and getting involved in Senate races and throwing politics around rather than he is actually getting to work and doing the job for the American people. And that's, to me, where the buck stops.
Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what they can actually pass in terms of legislation. Thank you so much, Julianne and Fred. When Public Affairs on Peach continues, we'll have a couple of new guests to continue talking about the year in politics. Stay with us.